Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of Knights of the Dirty Table. I am your host, Fitchburg's Merrick Henry, and today my guest is Wayne Dwyer. How are you, Wayne?
I'm doing great, and you?
I am peachy keen. Thanks for asking.
Wow, you're peachy and keen.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that's a little different, not super specific. This sign behind me obviously says coexist. And for all the letters, you have different fandoms representing each letter. You have Star Wars over there on the end with the Death Star. You have the ring from Lord of the Rings. The dragon from Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah.
The X
ampersand. It's called an ampersand.
Ampersand. Thank you for letting me know. I've learned something new today.
I got that from Why the Last Man.
You have X-Files, which is obviously the X. The TARDIS from Doctor Who, obviously the Superman logo. And then what we think is the ray gun from Star Trek.
It's called a phaser.
Phaser. Thank you, the phaser
or
from
taser,
Star Trek.
I don't know. I think all I know is Klingons and Phaser.
Set phasers to stun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sir Barny.
Although I do think Star Trek would be better with tasers. Just everyone tasing everyone.
So why are we talking about all these random things? The reason why is I wanted to try to get to the bottom of why we love these fandoms so much. What makes these larger than life characters, these exciting, thrilling stories, why they resonate with us so well. I had a friend the other day saying that she, watched episodes of the show, but there were a lot of, references that she didn't, quite get because she wasn't as into the fandom, which is completely fine. We welcome everyone into our podcast here at Knights at the Dirty Table. But it brought up an interesting point of kind of why are we so overly, at least for me, overly, probably you too, overly passionate about all these worlds and all this lore and history with all these characters. So Wayne, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on all this history?
I started watching Doctor Who. This is probably the best example I have for it.
Okay.
Back in 2007. I knew nothing about the show. A bunch of my friends told me to watch it. So I watched the first 2 episodes on my computer. I remember sitting there and being extremely confused.
Sounds like Doctor Who.
So Doctor Who, for the people that don't know, the new season that we have now is a continuation of the season we had back in the 80s. So they had a time gap because the show got canceled, and then Russell T Davies, showrunner.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, keep going.
Brought it back. So I was like, why are there plastics and British men yelling, and why is there a police box? That's all I know. Is and this also reminds me of Bill and Ted, because I love Bill and Ted.
Yes.
So I remember spending 2.5 days on my computer researching Doctor Who. By the time it was over, I was well overqualified. I had caught up to Whovians that were had been in it since the 80s and 70s, because I knew exactly what all these things were.
Well, you're the kind of person when you're ready to invest in something, you're gonna go all in. No question.
But most fandoms, Dungeons and Dragons is probably the easier one to get into because it really depends on your dungeon master. Let me finish.
Okay.
I know you're oh my god, he wants to play Dungeons and Dragons. So Dungeons and Dragons are basically 4 people sitting around a room with another guy with a book in front of him, and you all are making jokes. And occasionally someone rolls a dice. That's how you play D&D. There is no other way to play it. If anyone ever tells you have to role play and all this other crap, they're lying to you. I've had the most fun while making up everything as I'm doing it. I was a hobbit once. That was a bard, and I made a reference to an orc about stop trying to kill my people because we took a ring. It's a Lord of the Rings reference.
Yeah.
In my D&D game. Took my DM by surprise. But we did stuff like that. So Dungeons and Dragons is basically old campfire stories. Just occasionally you roll dice to see if you actually succeid.
I never thought about it like that.
That's where the inspiration to Dungeons and Dragons came from.
As most people know, I am not a Dungeons and Dragons guy. I never have been, and I think a big reason why I've never been into that specific lore is just because of how much of a punchline it's been on sitcom stuff. Look at those nerds playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Nothing has made me more angry
than
watching people play Dungeons and Dragons and doing it wrong. I watched The Big Bang Theory.
Saw this one coming.
And I remember watching it with my mom. I was like, Mom? She's like, what? That's all wrong. It's what do you mean? It's you can't force people to do anything. There's no rules in the guy. Basically, the Dungeon Master is a storyteller. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. And whatever your character's actions are their actions. And that's how they affect the story. So you're basically improvising an entire story from the top of your head. Like a campfire. So to to watch Sheldon and Amy say that they went and had sex or whatever is completely wrong.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it.
Yeah, like watching like Sheldon in his Green Lantern shirts. Those, I don't know why, but that always bothered me.
Just him wearing Green Lantern
shirts?
No,
not like how like they connected like like he would wear like a Star Sapphire shirt.
Yeah, I agree. It's not quite accurate.
Like if anyone knows anything about Star Sapphires, Barny, soon he'll know about them.
Yes, he is learning his Green Lantern lore.
I'm slowly giving him Green Lantern lore as he holds up the Orange Lantern, which is my favorite one.
I mean, you have to know kind of what you're getting into. You have to want to be invested, and with so many fandoms and cultures out there, especially with, how big, like, San Diego Comic-Con has gotten in the last, like, 15 years.
San Diego Comic-Con is basically...
Cons in general.
Yeah. San Diego Comic-Con, to me, feels like just an excuse to sit in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Like, my favorite time I ever went to a con was when it was Superman going to the beach. Mainly because I just like referencing that. And that costume was so awesome.
Oh, every time Wade's going to be on now, we're just going to reference
I'm just going to reference that costume, and people are going to like, in Fitchburg, like, hey, what's Superman at the beach? It's like, I do it every Halloween. It's my favorite costume. He's not even my favorite superhero.
No, he's not. Spider-Man is, right?
Spider-Man is,
yeah. No, for me, like what the biggest fandom, the one where my eyes, widened when I first saw this, and I went, good Lord, this is amazing. Most people would think it's, either Batman or Spider-Man or even Superman, general superheroes that everyone knows and loves. Not true with me. Mine was Power Rangers. From day one, that broadened my horizon. I was at my grandma's house one day in summer, and my mom was flipping through channels, and she happened to find this, random show that she'd never heard of before. Or maybe she did, and I just never knew. I don't know. But she found it, and she thought, no, maybe my son will like this. Hey, Merrick, this is on. Why don't you check this out? And I saw it, and just everything changed. There were giant monsters. There were really cool robots. There were multicolored superheroes. It was just so much flash, and it just everything changed. That's all I could emulate back when I was in kindergarten and first grade and throughout elementary school. I loved the Power Rangers, and I really love that the Power Rangers are kind of back now than they were before. Now that, like, the 25th anniversary, just
that was actually a good episode.
Yes, it was a great episode for what Power Rangers is.
I wish it was longer though, but that was all on it.
It's nice with where the film industry is going right now, with where television is going right now in terms of the great storytelling that they're telling either on Netflix or Hulu or HBO or even, CBS and CW to a lot of degrees. It's nice that these fandoms, what was considered nerd culture and, what was relegated as a joke before, is now really mainstream. It dominates the box office. It dominates television ratings. Comic-Con conventions just rake in so much money. It's no longer just like a niche product. It's kind of the most relevant aspect of life right now in terms of pop culture, strictly pop culture.
Well, it also depends on like which brand you're going for. Like,
yes. Well, I mean, with Star Wars coming, since Disney bought Star Wars has never been bigger than before.
Yeah, Star Wars is a big one now, but like Star Trek now isn't as big as it was then. Like, I have nothing against Star Trek. It's not my thing. My uncle used to come into my house, go into my fridge, and then change the TV on me and force me to watch Star Trek. So I will always have a negative connotation towards Star Trek.
Fair.
He loves it. I can't stand it. The only three Star Trek things I've ever liked were those movies that everyone hated because they weren't Star Trek.
Do you mean like
the Abrams ones?
Oh, the new ones. Yeah,
the new ones. Those were great. And everyone was like, "Oh, that's nothing like Star Trek." I was like, That's why I liked it. And then when Star Trek's 50th anniversary happened a few years ago.
Yeah.
Me and my brother watched it because it's kind of fun. I can see why people would like it. I don't like Next Generation though. That one's just boring and.
Patrick Stewart's one? Yeah.
He looks weird standing up. He does.
For all you X-Men lovers out there.
It's like, you just need to be in a wheelchair, please. I don't want anything bad to happen to Patrick Stewart. I'm just saying he looks weird standing up. He's hilarious in American Dad.
Yeah. I guess just I like that I no longer have to feel like I'm hiding in a corner or, you know, like that I can't really talk about things that I love so much anymore. I love that these things are really cool now. Like you can really talk about almost any of these things with anybody and people will know what's going on. It's great to talk to general fans who only got into, like, say, the Marvel universe just because of the Marvel films.
Yeah.
You know, and it's okay for people who don't know the comics to just enjoy the films. You're enjoying fantastic filmmaking. There's nothing wrong with that.
Like, I remember getting into an argument over Ultimate Captain America over his chin strap.
Okay,
because a friend of mine hated his chin strap, and I said it doesn't really matter as long as the character is still the character. Truth be told, Ultimate Captain America, which was a whole nother level of weird, because Ultimates were just weird.
Yes.
He wasn't really the character, but I was like, it shouldn't matter their appearance. You should be able to like them as they are. Another thing, too, I think that also helped was they got big names for the characters, too. Like Robert Downey Jr. basically made Iron Man cool.
Yes, but that was also at a time when he was fighting back.
Yeah.
Coming back to Hollywood. So he was a gamble. Like the studio was a gamble. The film itself was a gamble on a B-list superhero property. And then
they actually didn't have a script when they finished it too. Most of that movie was ad-libbed.
Right. But I mean, even if you look at Thor, that was an unknown actor taking on a B-list character. And Captain America, more or less, isn't as A-list as Spider-Man and X-Men were. No, but you still had Chris Evans. He was already a superhero at that point.
I remember learning about Captain America through the Spider-Man animated TV show.
Same. I got a lot of my history from that Spider-Man series too. Same with X-Men.
The X-Men show was awesome too.
I
like Hugh Jackman because I could finally understand Wolverine. That was like my whole thing. Was
snarl,
growl, ruffy voice.
I guess just another thing, just to wrap up, just before we go, for me with fandoms, a lot of these fandoms we get into, we're invested in the heroes.
Yeah.
And how they fight injustices. And a lot of these stories that you see, especially when you go back like some 10 or 15 years, a lot of these stories kind of pertain to real world events, whether it be, you know,
well, like
at the time.
Spider-Man is a perfect example. If you have the power to help someone, then you should help them.
Right.
If you have the ability to help someone do something, you don't ask for anything to do it. You just do it. Like, that's what I took away from Spider-Man. Right. I've lived by that my entire life.
I've as I've gotten older, I've grown more into wanting to be like the heroes that I see on screen.
Should always strive to be the hero that you want to be.
When I saw Chris Evans as Captain America and Winter Soldier, that's what really turned it on for me to be a good person as often as I can, you know, to do whatever I need to try to make the right choice, not just for myself, but for
when I
others.
Realized that I love Captain America as much as I do was in Civil War, the comic book.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, I used to argue with someone about, like, the comic book is nothing like the actual movie.
No,
you
take out the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and a little bit more of Spider-Man based on rights, you've already got a vastly different story alone.
And, like, they're arguing over whether or not superheroes should register, which is basically the same concept, but, like, the events that happen to it are differently. People actually die in it.
Yeah, but they definitely like took the name for the Civil War.
They took the name and they took like the basic structure to it. But like in that story though, I never felt like Iron Man was like an adversary. I thought he was the villain. Like in Civil War, going back, I remember the exact moment where I sided with Tony at that end of the movie. It was when he said he killed my mom. I was like, he's right at that point. But like every other point though, I was always up for Cap until that ending.
Right. Because it was just so personal.
The Russos said that's what they wanted to do. They wanted you to feel sympathy for both sides.
That's good writing.
That's very good writing.
That's good fandom. That's good.
That's just good character work. And like, if you go back and you watch all 3 Captain America movies, you can actually see him go into those story. You can actually see where he ended up and why it made sense to what he did all the way up to Endgame.
Well, I wonder if we actually answered the question of why we like fandoms so much. It's okay if we didn't. Comment down below what you think your favorite fandoms are and what got you into these kinds of, you know, fandoms and these fantastic worlds. You know, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, anything is fair game as far as
Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z.
We will need a separate video on Dragon Ball Z, my friend. Thank you so much for watching Knights of the Dirty Table, and we will see you next time.